Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Hello all.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good vibes.
Good vibes.
Good vibes.
How is
These
everybody
days.
doing this Sunday morning?
Spiffing.
Tired.
Spiffing. Tired. Yeah,
Very
you've
well.
only had, what, have you had 3 hours sleep?
Yep. Yep.
Working
That's it,
related.
right,
Joe.
Joe.
Working related.
Glad you cleared that up, John.
Morning, everybody. Yes, we've just had a very entertaining last 10 minutes. I'm sure Christian and Josh will agree with me. The gentleman to the right of me on screen has literally left it lastminute.com to sort his background lighting and camera that wasn't even plugged in. So I thought I was bad, but this was on a different level. So it was rather entertaining.
Don't jump the gun yet because we've got 2 hours of this and we know your technical issues.
Yeah, true. There's still time. Fair play, mate.
What's
Fair
the battery
play.
life on your camera, Tom?
We're on 95%, so fingers crossed. Because yes, I still haven't bought the pass-through battery.
Do you know what? I bought
You'll
this
know better
camera
than me.
this week with a pass-through battery at the same time, exact same time. I thought I'm going to need that. Just saying.
Well,
Get an iPad.
and I like your
It's easier.
backdrop. Your backdrop. I've got to admit, it does look very, very professional.
Thank you,
Yeah.
sir. And you've seen it in person, and it doesn't look
Yeah.
like that in person. So
Yeah.
we flipped
I hope
it.
you're as good as growing corals as you are as your backdrop, but we'll see.
We'll see, eh?
Right, morning, Drippy. Thanks for joining us, mate, to the channel. You've got your John Wright mug there. Yeah,
John Wright, top man as always. Thank you,
Well,
Johnny boy.
thank you, Johnny.
Well, that's
boy.
lovely. I'm even more envious now because Drippy
I
wasn't
need a
even
John
a proper
Wright mug.
streamer until today.
You're
He
not
was like a
important enough,
guest.
mate. You're not important enough.
I'm not. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, John. I don't mean that much to you, mate. But you know,
Oh, it's a lovely cup, that is. Proper cup, that is.
no pressure. No pressure. Get the printer out.
Bit of class about it.
So, Christian, this morning we are going to be getting, well, hopefully, digging into a little bit more about what you do at Signature Frags. Obviously, everybody knows Signature Frags, you know, high-profile brand. Everybody associates it with, you know, banging corals, SPS in particular. But yeah, we're going to go through a series of questions. I think we've got a couple that have been planned. We obviously want people in the chat to ask as many questions as they can, reefing related, ideally. Try not to get too personal within this morning.
I've got the person.
Yeah, I'm sure you've got a few bit of entertainment up your sleeve this morning, Drip. Right, then let's jump in and see who's joined us this morning. Thanks again, everybody, for coming on this morning. Dave's not on now, but he's going to catch up later. Sorry. Morning, Dave. Thanks for coming on and saying hello. One and only Mr. Wright in the house. Morning. Hope you do well, John. Who else have we got? Jupiter's Reef. Good morning, Jupiter's Reef. The one and only Leroy in the house. Morning, Lee.
Hey.
What else have we got? Scroll down. Everybody's saying good morning to each other. Rama. Morning, mate. Hope you're well. Hope you're having a good weekend so far. Gaza. Morning, Gaz. Hope you're well, mate. Hope the tank's doing well. What else have we got in here? UK 120 regulars. Nice to see some regulars. Thanks ever so much again for the support. Morning, UK 120. Jay. Morning, Jay. Hope you're well, mate. Hope you're having a good weekend, buddy. Liam. Morning, Liam. Hope your tank's getting better. You'll have to tell me about that later.
Another
Had a bit of a
avatar.
stressful weekend. Yes, I think it's another avatar. Yeah, creating one every week. Good
What's he
effort.
got this week?
Another shark.
I
Looks
do
like a
enjoy
shark
this.
on a lily pad or in a lily. Anyway,
Looks like a load of flowers.
cheers,
Yeah.
Dave. Morning, Dave. Hope you well, mate. Like the new escape you had done recently, you'll have to send us some pics of that. Let us know how you're getting on. Look really
Need
good.
some corals in it now.
He does. Who else have we got in here? Upstream Detail. Good morning. Not recognised that avatar before. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate that. Who else have we got? Carl. Nice to see you, Carl. Thanks for joining us, mate. Hope you're having a good weekend.
Morning,
Looks like
Carlos.
you had a nice trip out to London on Instagram. Looks like you had an entertaining day. Went out raving, he did. And Daz is in the house. Daz has joined us this morning. Morning, Daz.
Yeah.
Hope you're well, mate.
That's up.
And Paul. Morning, Paul. I'm out shopping with Flange now, but I'll catch up in a while. Yep. Thanks again. Thanks for joining us. Cheers for the support, as always. Oh, couple more.
Chris.
Got Hurren's Reef. Morning, Hurren's Reef. Not seen that avatar again before, so thanks for joining us. Right then, I think that's everybody. Like I always do, if anybody jumps in, I will try and acknowledge you and shout out throughout the stream. What's happening then? Anything to report this week? Any joys? Any ups and downs in the reefing world? Anybody want to jump? Downs. Oh, okay.
Down, and it's something that I'm gonna maybe put to Christian a bit later in a couple of the questions. But yeah, I sent a few pictures across to the main man himself, and he managed to. And I have no idea how he managed to spot it because the pictures were green as anything, but he managed to spot a few little bugs on some of the acros. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to be doing quite a heavy dose of course of treatment. It's something we'll discuss a little bit later. But yeah, not the best week, shall we say, knowing that I've got those in the tank now, even though I've sort of gone through what people would consider a fairly thorough treatment before they've gone into the system. It's quite frustrating that obviously the bugs have still managed to make their way in there. But yeah, bit of a down, but one of those things, isn't it?
At least you found out, though.
Mm-hmm.
You can do something about
Very
it
much
now.
so. Yeah.
We've used it as a bit of an exercise this week. So, because it's a good example, right? So, and I don't know if you mind us sharing the pictures. We haven't even prepared that, but it's a good it's a good exercise for people to train their eyes in what to look for. Because obviously I was looking for something because I thought, well, these corals they don't look right to me. You know, a lot of them are bleached. So, you know, and if your ICP came back fine, you know, it just means and your nutrients were balanced, then it's got to be something aggravating, right?
Yeah.
Some sort of pathogen maybe, but you don't really see that kind of damage with pathogens. It's more likely something sucking the life out of them. So this is why we, led to further investigation. So it's interesting to see if you can find the bugs. Drippy found them. Quite impressed, mate. Circled them.
In the previous life, I was a reaper. I was an acro grower in a previous life, you see.
There you go.
You've always struck me as a grower, not a shower, Drippy.
As long as it gets there, I don't mind. It's only got to last about 35 seconds. So,
have you identified them then, Christian, as in what they actually are? Can you do that? Or is it just a case of there is a pest? How do you, what's your...
I've identified one, but I believe there's two. So it can either be one pest, which is these white bugs that everybody's getting. It could be a different pest. Now, I don't know the Latin names for them. I've never even looked up the Latin names. It could be another one where this white one actually develops into like a grey one with like a plate on its back. Like they're quite difficult to treat. Or we have seen a few slug type looking things, right? So they need further investigation. So I'll actually be taking a trip to Josh's soon, and just having a look with my own eyes and see if we can really iron out what they are. So I know I can treat one. We just need to figure out what the other one is, right?
Wow. Okay.
What
sort of time scale are we thinking to get him on the mend? Any ideas? What's the typical sort of duration of treatment?
I mean, depending on what they are, right? So obviously identifying them, and it's going to be trying a course of different treatments that I use here in the QT. I mean, some of these things, if I find them in the QT, then I'll just bin the batch, I'll just get rid of them if I can't treat them.
I might sound like a total right? But if you can't identify something with your eye through the glass of Josh's tank, would you then take that acro out and whack it under a microscope?
Well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to use the magnifying glass, and I've got a real keen eye. I'll give myself severe eye strain looking at acros all these years. But we'll use a magnifying glass and we'll have a good look. And if need be, we could take some scraping. Trouble is, when you take scrapings, you see a lot of like bacteria and stuff like that. So it becomes harder to understand what you're looking at unless you're like because I'm not a PhD. I don't pretend to. But it's just going through the same motions that I've always done and trying to identify based on what I've seen. I mean, I've handled a lot of acros, and I've seen a lot of things that I know and then I've learned about or that I haven't known and then learned about and tried various different treatments on them. So, if it's the white bugs, then they're quite easy, really. It takes about a month to get rid of. If they're the other things, then we're just going to have to experiment a bit, I think. Just take it as it comes.
And how do you know? That question. How do you know it's actually working? because let's be honest, corals can take, as we know, can take months to colour back up or to settle. Or am I wrong saying that? How do you measure that you're winning? Almost.
Right. So generally what I'd say, if in a healthy environment, right, there is no reason that a coral should not look healthy, right? Unless something's annoying it. So if it's a healthy environment, you haven't got metals or anything like that. And if your nutrients are in check and you got the stability there, everything should be thriving, but it's not, right? That's where we're at with things, because Josh is meticulous in his care. So for me, once you've treated a pest, that acro is going to recover quite significantly, very quickly, when nothing's aggravated it, right? So if it's pathogenic, something eating away at it at kind of the biome level, or one of these little pod type pests, once you've got rid of them, the rebounds are incredibly quick. I mean, Sam Parker was describing some of the issues that we associated with these little white bugs. And even though they pretty much come from Indo, it appears that they've made it into his system. There's no reason to think that they're not worldwide. Why would they not be? And there's a lot of coral smuggling, right? But he was a bit unsure, but he decided to go ahead with a treatment. And kind of 3 weeks into it, he's seeing colours that he hasn't seen before on his acros. So it's a pretty good sign that the pest has been dealt with. It's not to say that it might not come back, but I think, follow-up dips. I mean, this is why when we quarantine things, I've got a series of procedures that I do repeat, right, through that whole quarantine time, just to ensure, right? And they only make the main systems once I'm sure that they're clean, I think
just going to jump into a question, sorry, from Darren Josh for you on that one. Do you think since your wrasse fish have gone, that pests have got out of control?
Tough to say, because it's been a while since I had the wrasse in there. The other fish, I wouldn't really expect them to be very good on pest control. The wrasse, I was always noticing in picking at things. So undoubtedly the wrasse would have made some sort of difference, but there's a chance that since I've lost the wrasse, I think I've added coral since then. So there's a chance that they've come in after the wrasse. So I couldn't say for certain. It's not something I can definitely say yes or no to. But in terms of other pests, not at all. There's no other pests in there. The only pests I've got are these acro bugs. Everything else is doing absolutely fine.
Okay.
Yeah, they're really difficult because a lot of people are in the practice of like dipping a coral or scrubbing the base or cutting the base off. And I mean, you've seen yourself from those pictures and just doing this exercise we did this week and looking for the pests. They're that small that they sit between. They can go into the corallite and sit between the polyp and the corallite. They're smaller than a single lash of a polyp.
Can you send them to me, Josh? Sorry, Chris. Can you send them to me? I'm trying to put them on the screen on WhatsApp, and I'll email them to myself, and I'll put them on the screen for people so they have a little bit more. You what, Drip?
Way to make him feel better on a Sunday morning.
Well, I think it's, to be fair, hats off to him for talking about it. I mean, some people don't want to share the downs. It's always their ups. When it comes to reef tanks, etc. So no, fair play. And I think it's important that anybody else that might be having a bit of a suspicion or curiosity that has a better understanding. I certainly don't know what I was. I mean, I found a couple, I think, from the pictures that you were talking about the other day, but I didn't find them all. So, so what should people be looking out for then, Christian? You're saying then, things don't look healthy, or in Josh's case, they've faded out, bleached a bit?
I think. So the perception is, I'd say there's a lot of reefers out there who are growing corals, and these, the corals will still grow when they've got these pests on them. And then there'll be a perception of, I'm growing corals, that's healthy, that's what it should look like. But when somebody else comes along and looks at them, they're just lacking that luster, that depth of color. So for me, it's almost a little bit like metal damage. So our metals will thin the tissue. Yeah. And you'll see the striations in the flesh, the texture in the flesh gets thinner and thinner, the growth margins get thinner, and you'll see the skeleton through it. It's almost like that. So you're checking in the internodes. Imagine it's like it's a vampire, right? And it's sucking the life of the acro. Okay. And you're looking for that, pale skin, just not looking there's no reason an acro shouldn't be bright and punchy unless something's annoying it.
Right.
So that's what you're looking for. I think, though, it helps you as a reefer to go and see other hobbyist tanks, right? And really understand what colours are achievable, and then look at your own and think, hang on, maybe I'm not going to settle, something's going on. I think that's key, because it's that perception of what's possible, right?
Yeah.
If you don't know, you don't know. So, you know, exposure to as many as you can is going to help. I think you're right, Carl. Most tanks do have pests, and it is part of reefing. It's a big part of reefing. But you know, if you can eliminate as many of those as possible, you're going to save your headaches down the road. You don't want to invest thousands and thousands and thousands in equipment and livestock, only for it all just to fall to pieces because you've got a pest in there which could have been prevented.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
Yeah,
and what sort of are these that we're looking at? I'm just literally going to send them to myself now. These that we're referring to, these bugs that you're saying, are they? You know, do they multiply? What sort of, you know, what's the, I don't know, life cycle or the, you know, the characteristics? Do they, you know, do they take over a tank quickly, or are they concentrated to one area and you can easily remove them, or, you know, how does that
I think
work?
it's a bit of a slow burner, right? So you do, you know, if they get in your tank, you're looking for tank-wide treatments. Or it might be the case if it's something really bad, you know, but you're taking everything out of the tank, which is affecting, right?
Yeah.
Life cycles, I don't think we're there with the knowledge yet. I think it's kind of like leading edge kind of experimentation in terms of the treatments of these. So, you know, there's a few farmers globally who are kind of sharing information with each other. But it's not widespread. It's not like a lot of these you can just Google it, you know, because the information just isn't there. So there's a lot of experimentation involved. I mean, for the white bugs specifically, you know, you do 3 treatments and you've killed them, right? So we think the breeding cycle's about a fortnight on those.
Right.
As to how quick
they're live bearers as well, aren't they? The white bugs, they're live bearers, so you don't have eggs being laid with them as a comparison to the flatworms.
Right. So they're going to take over your tank really slowly, right? But the thing is, the change in your acros is so gradual, or the corals being affected is so gradual that you might not see it, you might not notice it. You know, that's a problem. And if they're growing, it's like, okay, well, why question it?
Yeah.
Right, I'm nearly here with
it's one of the things for me was obviously, you know, I've still got colours and okay colours in the corals. It was a very stunted growth, and that was something that you sort of honed in on quite quickly. Was the coral should be a lot bigger than what they already are, and if you look at other corals in the tank, they're all doing okay. There's some other acros that are absolutely flying. There's other SPS that are flying, yet there were a select number of acros that were struggling, and it's the sort of the harder to grow acros, granted, but they were a lot slower growing than you'd have expected. So you thought, well, there's something wrong here. Let's have a look what it is. ICP was pretty much where it needed to be. Nutrients were okay. Lighting is at the right level. Flow is good. So we kicked off all the usual sort of markers, and it was like, right, let's have a little bit of a closer look. And as soon as you looked, you noticed them. So like you said, sometimes it is just noticing a difference between one coral to another. So you've seen these corals in a much healthier environment without the pests, and you know what they can and should look like. So then when you've seen them in mine, straight away you thought, that doesn't look right. I know what could be a cause of this. And obviously, as soon as we've looked, we've found it. So yeah, it does pay, like you're saying, to have an understanding of what other corals can look like and what the potential of them is.
Yeah. So I've got to be honest, Josh, like I've been looking at your tank for a long time and had suspicions. And it was just getting around to having that conversation with you. And
yeah,
we'll get on top of it, mate. You know.
Christian, do you think, I've just been looking at the chat whilst listening to you, and although everyone would ideally go down the route of nature to sort out any problem in our tanks, right, rather than go to the bottles of fucking, excuse my language, whatever on the shops, right? Do you honestly think a fish, i.e. a wrasse, is going to pick off white bugs that you can barely see with your own eyes or a magnifying glass and keep them at bay? Do you think fish are going to do that?
I think a lot of these pod type pests, no. I think, you know, if you've got really small wrasse, right, it can get in a nook of crannies like, you know, like a pajama wrasse 6-line or maybe a banana, something like that. You know, like a yellow chorus. They're generally pretty good. So maybe, but is that a good thing or a bad thing to keep population in check because they're still there, right?
Mm.
And if they're hidden in the corallites between the polyps and they're just coming out and have a little bit of a munch and going back in, and your corals are never going to flourish, right? So for me, I'm always wanting to get the best out of my corals, and if I know I can't do that because of something affecting them, I want to treat that. I don't think. I mean, I think with bigger pests like the flatworms and things like that, you know, I know a lot of people with tanks that have run successfully for years, and the sticks are growing out of the water. And they're like, yeah, I've got flatworms. I've had them for years, and you know, my rats keep them in check. You know, it's entirely possible. You know, you've got good parameters, you've got good stability. Maybe they can kind of live in harmony a little bit. I mean, that's their argument, but at the end of the day, they're there, right? And that just irritates me. So
they're a nuisance. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd want to take more drastic action because I know that the coral's going to thank me for it afterwards.
And another question would be, quickly, sorry, Tom, another question.
Right.
When people buy something from an LFS or if they get it from their mate, right, straight away we dip it, right? Whatever dip people use, we dip it. Are you of any knowledge that dips will not remove white bugs if those white bugs or any, you know, the grey, the black, does any dip remove those bugs as well as flatworms, etc.?
So, I mean, as far as we know for micro pests, right, which are harder to see with a naked eye, these ones that can like fit between the polyp and the corallite. I mean, it's like these new acropore eating flatworms. If you've seen those, I mean, every farmer I know is scared to death of them. You know, we'll all throw batches of QT out if we find them. I mean, Melifix aggravates them, which is great. That can get them out of the coral to at least give you a sign that you've got them. But in many cases, the dip would have to be strong enough to kill the coral before it will kill the pest, which is unfortunate. Right? So the dip is never gonna, you know, your dips, your commercially available dips are really only going to take off like bristle worms and pods and like you know, like amphipods and flatworms. You're not really going to get to the level where it's going to affect these little micro pests that can live inside the skeleton. I mean, there's pests that will live inside the mesenterial tract, right, and they'll travel through the acro. How are you going to treat that? Like you cut it in half with a bone cutter, the branch, and you'll see the pests inside. Like you can't.
So just to rewind, sorry a minute. You were talking about the tracks, so like a little bit like veins in the human body, or you know, yeah, that they would travel up. I'm just trying to picture what you're talking about. You were saying,
yeah. So that like a mesenterial network, like where the polyps attached to, right? Like your nervous system, I guess. Yeah. Again, I'm not a scientist, right? This is just how I kind of, you know, interpret the information or what's in front of me, and you can find them inside, like swimming around. It's crazy.
Wow.
You know, I had a friend who had these new acropore eating flatworms, and he came downstairs. The reason that he found out he had them, all of a sudden the bottoms of his acros were bleaching, and he came downstairs one night when the lights were out for a drink and looked at his tank, as you do, and this acro colony looked black. He was like, "What's that?" And he turned his living room light on, and by the time he turned round, he said it looked like the black was melting away, leaving behind a white skeleton. And these pests, he had a mass infestation, were actually going under the acro and in the corallites and completely disappeared from sight. They hid when the light was on. Wow. And they systematically took out one colony, then another, and this happened over the course of a couple of weeks. You know, they're devouring a full colony overnight. That's scary. And he's the guy who he took some branches off and dipped them in Dettol, and I think he used like 50 ml of Dettol per litre. He says the acro just got nuked instantly, and his pests were still scurrying around. And he got the bone cutters and he cut open the skeleton, and he could just see them all there, just nestled inside the skeleton. I mean, that's the fear of God.
That's a horror story in itself, isn't it?
That is a horror story, right? And this is why we don't dip and scrub or cut bases and just think they're good, right? You've got to, you know, this quarantine, you've got.
No, he's
lost him.
Oh, he's back.
He's
back. Bit of a technical issue there, mate. You just glitched. Sorry.
Who's that?
You did.
I did. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
It's all right. Fine.
How much was that camera?
Yeah. Too much. Too much.
Let me just show the viewers what you were talking about anyway. Sorry, and we will try and put a positive spin on this stream at some point, we promise you. So this is what we're looking at. Is this right? So talk us through the pictures, Mr. Polland, if you don't
Rolling
mind.
Stones logo.
Right. So I haven't got a cursor, have I? I mean, Josh, you're suspecting that big blotch at the top is moving around, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, so that blotch on the right is almost slug-like. So we're thinking possibly some sort of flatworm or similar. And then the ones on the left are they're if you watch them move, they're comparable to what you would see a copepod move around. Like they sort of scurry around, stop for a second, scurry a little bit more. So the ones on the left are what we're assuming are bugs, and then the one on the right is significantly bigger than, as you can tell from just like the coral skin.
Can you see it
Significantly
with your
bigger.
eyes, John? Or do you need a magnifying glass to see that moving?
So I've always looked with just my eyes, and I've never really noticed anything. It's only that Christian said look harder, and I've looked harder, and I've started. You could only just make them out, and then as soon as you use the magnifying glass, they were far more obvious. That one on the right was noticeable with the bare eye, and I just thought maybe it was a stung section of the coral. And it was moving very slowly, and I watched it slowly but surely move across to the left, where you can see the sort of bare skeleton. And I watched it. So at first, I thought it was nothing, and then the longer I watched it, I could see it moving very slowly. So I knew then that was some sort of flatworm or slug type pest. But the ones on the left are very much. I would compare them probably closest to like a very, very, very small copepod.
Have you got the strawberry shortcake picture there, Tom? The second strawberry shortcake picture.
Well, you almost unorganised. This is brilliant.
I've not. I'm just looking at what Josh has just sent me through just now.
I never sent you the shortcake ones because the one I sent Christian that we couldn't on the second picture I sent him we couldn't identify anything.
No,
but
we've got 2 white bugs on there and a little slug.
Yeah, that was the first one. Do you remember the ones I sent you with these ones with the magnifying glass? We couldn't see anything, could we?
Oh no, sorry, no.
Yeah, the first one I sent you, I don't know where that is. That one we could identify. Did you forward that one on to Tom?
I've not got that one. I can't present that one, I'm afraid. You'll have to send it on to me. So have you tried blasting these things off? What have you done? No, nothing.
Not
left
yet.
It. Right.
So the main one we could see it on was the pearlberry. That's the images you got here of the pearlberry. So I've taken that off the rockscape and I've put it down on the sand bed, just so that I could get it up against the glass to have a close look at it. Next step is going to be to dip it in a variety of dips just to see if we can get something off. If we can get something off and then try and identify them in that way, that would help. And then once we've made a bit of a potential dent, we're obviously then going to go down the route of treating the tank as a whole. But that again, it's risky with your inverts you've got in your tank, so I will be removing them, putting them into a quarantine system, and they'll have to then stay in that quarantine system for at least a month, because then obviously, like you say, we've got life cycles. If one of them's on a shell, for example, after it's been blown off or knocked off, we'd like to remove that food source for it. So yeah, it's all going to be a lot of moving around, a lot of dipping, a lot of treating. But ultimately, it's something that if we want that tank to continue, then it's a necessity.
You know what, Josh? If anything, mate, look at it like you're going to learn a whole.
Mate, Drippy, that's exactly it, mate. I'm blown away that I've been able to learn this this much in such a short space of time. Just because it's like I didn't think they were there. Christian spotted they were there because he's the expert with it, and now he's obviously imparting his knowledge to me, which is fantastic. And we're picking up quite a lot from it, and hopefully moving forward, it means that in future I might not be as at risk of introducing into the system, just because I'll be a little bit more thorough with prevention. Whether that means setting up a quarantine tank is something we'll discuss a little bit later. But yeah, there's obviously there are options there. But like you say,
and you can also possibly help someone else in the future that might roll in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if I can see something in their tank that looks similar, or let's see the coral presented in a similar way, I'll know that potentially there's more going on than lighting, parameters, flow, fish nipping or something similar. So yeah, no, it's there is definitely a positive spin on it. It's frustrating, but as we can see, there are corals in there that are thriving. So there is 100% light at the end of the tunnel. If it does mean binning off some corals that are too heavily infested, you know, so be it. And we'll refresh with some newer, cleaner colonies, hopefully. So, yeah,
I've just
one way or another.
I've just managed to get a picture of the shortcake then you sent over to me. So this is what originally started the curiosity, I take it. Is this right? Just to
This one with the red circles on it.
this one. This right,
So-
Christian?
So that's right, yeah. So on that, if you zoom it in, there are 2 white bugs and some slug of some description.
Right, let me
I will.
But this goes to show how tiny they are, really. And no one's at
Just
fault
sent you
for
the
letting
picture,
this
Tom.
get in the system. It's
all right,
just
cheers.
if you don't know what you're looking for, you just don't know, right? And
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's not until you kind of go through it that you realize and you know the signs, right? And they've all
Well,
got kind of different signs.
How many people would have that in their tank? Everything's spot on, and then they make their tank more unstable because they feel like they've got to add something or so, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally, mate.
They don't
Totally.
know what they're looking for. I mean, how many, you know, unless I speak to you, Ponderosa, I'm unaware of white bugs, grey bugs. Like, you know, this knowledge is everything.
It is. I mean, you know, a general hobbyist who sees a bleached acro, they're going to think, oh, let me test my nutrients, or let me send an ICP. Oh, maybe the lights are too bright, let's reduce the lights. You know, and you're not going to get to the, you know, the reason. And then you're certainly not going to get to the cure, right?
Exactly.
Right,
Trying to see if I can find a picture of that acro so you can get an idea of just how good the color is on it, in how it's quite unsuspecting almost. A lot of people might have the sort of similar standard of color. There is even some small, like, I know strawberry shortcakes aren't renowned for their polyp extension, but there is some there. It's not tons, but there is some.
Got angelfish.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Yeah,
kind
so
of
you've
looks
got
like a
Susan.
zeovit coral, right? But it's very pastel. You know, and some people, you know, strive for that look. So
yeah, and that's something that I think I've discussed in the past. That relatively low nutrients is something that I quite like. I like that sort of paler sort of look to a coral. I don't like the really deep colours. But I think we've discussed this when we were talking about different corals to add to the system, haven't we, Christian? I like them sort of like more muted colours, but vibrant enough that they'll contrast well against each other. So like that sort of colour, I wasn't overly shocked by, because you know the pastel colours is what I'm fairly happy with. And there are other corals that are growing really well and are pastel-y coloured, and you sort of think, well, they're healthy, they're fine, they're growing. So I wasn't, you know, shocked to see the strawberry shortcake looking like that. But then again, now that we've got someone looking at it with a trained eye, you know that that's not how it should look. So, yeah.
I mean, you'll be amazed. Once we sort these out, you'll be amazed at the colour that develops. You won't believe
I don't even doubt it. Yeah. Don't doubt it in the slightest.
How long do you think this has been going on for, Josh?
I mean, I've had that strawberry shortcake in there, I would say, over a year now. It's been in the system over a year. I'm not going to say the reefer I got it from, because he might not want me dropping a minute in case, you know, it's come from his system.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry?
Was it Christian?
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't, thankfully. But that coral has always looked like, well, it browned out when it was first introduced to the system, as you'd expect. But then once the colours have come back, the colours have never dropped off. Other corals might have browned out through lighting changes or anything like that. That coral has never changed in colour. It's always stayed a fairly nice, vibrant green with the pink tips on it. The polyp extension's always been okay. I've sent you a picture there where you can see the colours and the polyp extension on it. It's not massive, but there's enough there that you think it's okay. It's never changed. But the stunted growth over such a long period of time is what's always been a concern to me. I've always thought maybe it's instability, maybe they've just not been happy enough to grow yet. But yeah, that's clearly,
You know,
that might be
thing,
part of the cause.
there's also many different varieties of a strawberry shortcake. Some, do you know what I mean? So some are completely different colours to others, and they're still deemed a strawberry shortcake. Christian, I spoke to you the other day, and you was like, "What strawberry shortcake have you got?" And I was like, "What's a strawberry shortake, isn't it?" This, you know. But so, you know, some will be lighter, some will be less bold in colour than others, etc. So it's crazy, mate.
just going to chuck it in the audience now. Here we go. We've got, so this is what it looks like today. Is this right? So you've got a better picture for everybody watching. Thank you.
So the picture with the red circles, that's the picture on your left, that's the original picture I sent to Christian. He's then blown it up a little tiny bit because it was a high res image. He's blown it up and he spotted those tiny little white dots that you can see in the middle of the red circles. I'd have never spotted that in a million years. He's clocked it straight away. And then the picture on the right was after I took it off the rock work and sat it on the sandbed to inspect it closer, and we couldn't see anything on it. But as you can see, there are colours in it, and it looks colour-wise, it's not an unhealthy looking coral to me anyway, for someone with low nutrients.
Yeah, see, I look at that and I know there's an issue. That's the difference, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's not right. There should be more green, even if it's pale. It should be more green.
Yeah.
Can you zoom in on those dots so the audience can kind of see? That's if everyone's interested.
Now you're asking me.
I'll have to.
It's
just
earlier.
Say that again, mate.
I'll
tell you what we'll do is we'll share this on the Reefers Network Instagram page, following the screen, so everyone can have a good look and zoom in themselves if they feel that they want to familiarize themselves.
Right, I'm going to try, and you talk amongst yourselves for a second. I'm going to try and zoom in.
So
for you.
we have digressed a little bit from what we were going to start off with. So we were going to ask you, Christian, what your way into the hobby was, how you've got yourself started. I know we discussed the other day and you said that your first fish tank was goldfish, and then you've made that huge jump. Rather than going through all the planted systems, you've just jumped straight into reefing. So if you want to talk us through that a little bit, that would be amazing.
So yeah, we had the old goldfish from the fairground when I was young. Got a couple of mollies and some goldfish in this big kind of globe shaped tank. Yeah, little tiny. It's like a big globe bottle, and my cat used to sit on top with a paw down a little hole to try and grab the fish. It was quite cute. And then I never really thought about fish tanks. I kind of just thought, oh, what a dirty and they smell, and I wasn't really interested. And then a friend will set me to look for some lighting, some bulbs. I was like, okay, I'll go and pick them up. And I went into a local fish shop, Wharf Aquatics. And I was blown away. It's the first time I'd ever seen corals. And I thought, wow, this is interesting. It's like an alien world. Right? I saw an LPS tank with the torches flowing. Obviously, I'd seen fish before that and bits and bobs, but that was it for me. I was like, okay, wow. And then I got myself a fish tank. Granted, I only kept fish for a bit. I've always been an interested, inquisitive hobbyist, always trying to learn stuff. I think we all are, right? We all go on up fact for knowledge. So it was basically from that humble beginnings. I had a nano, which I thought the world of, was my little bit of paradise. Looked absolute rubbish, but for me, it was amazing. I didn't have a lot of money at the time, so I used to go out and buy myself a coral once a month, maybe 20, 30 quid coral. And just built my tank like that. That was it, really. Obviously, been in it for a fair few years now.
How long are we talking on the sort of time frame from that nano till now?
I think I was like early 20s when I first got into it. Yeah, and I'm 40 now, so it's been quite a while. Yeah,
and the rest.
Yeah, so quite a while.
Good. Right, these pictures have come in now. I'm going to throw this in now for you before we move on topic. So
Morning,
zoomed in a little bit for you there. So these are areas that you saw from the picture that Josh sent you. Am I right here so far? Yeah. You zoomed in, you circle them and say, that looks suspect. Am I right? Yeah.
Well, this is after the suspect. I was like, this looks suspect. Send me some pictures and zoomed in. And then I found these two white bugs. So you see circled on the right, the two circles on the right are white bugs. And they're tiny. Look at the size of a polyp in comparison to the white bug. Yeah. And then the one to the left is some sort of slug-like creature. Unsure yet as to what that is. So we need further investigation on that. The trouble is, no matter how good a picture is, I need my eyes on something to really understand. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, these are the size of the things that we're looking for, right? And it's so easy to understand why they just get through past so many people.
Yeah. Because you obviously have an eye for it, you know what you're looking at. But I think for the average reefer, it's polyps are out, coral's happy. So if it's paling, then it's nutrient related or potentially a pollutant in the water. So yeah, like you say, ICP. Interesting.
Now in the ocean, right? Bearing in mind these are in aquariums, they get caught, they go into holding facilities wherever they are. They then get distributed to whatever part of the world. They end up in tanks all over the world. In the ocean, these will still be there, right?
I guess, but you've got mass dilution, right?
Mm.
So, in a closed environment, it's completely different, right? It's, we've got the control because you can't control the ocean. However, if left unchecked, these things can explode, their populations can explode in numbers, right? Whereas in the ocean, you might find one, I don't know, I'm not an expert on it, right? But, in the ocean, you've got fields of acros. What, has one of those 1,000 acros got a pest on it? I don't know. Have they all got a small pest on? I don't know, right? But the fact is they're there. And unfortunately,
they're feeding on the acropora.
That's right, yeah.
Mm.
I think as well, like what you're saying there, Drippy, is like, yes, they're in the ocean. We get much bigger parameter swings in our systems. Our systems might be slightly more unbalanced. I think it was it might have been Swiss Reefer, I think, or Ollie's Tank. One of those shared an ICP this morning from Bora Bora. And if we look at the numbers on it, the numbers are all perfectly in range. Everything is where you would want them to be if you had an ICP come back. So it shows the level of stability you've got in the ocean. So these corals are going to be much healthier and much more comfortable in their environment, that they might be able to survive pests a lot easier. If you think like a
like
person
an immune
that takes
system.
all the, yeah, so like a person that takes their vitamins, things like that, is going to be much more resistant to a virus or an infection than someone that maybe is, smoking 30 cigarettes a day, drinking heavily.
100%.
It's the same principle. If you've got something in an incredibly healthy environment, it's going to be much more resistant than what it would be in our closed systems, where the corals have been stressed through transport, through lighting changes, flow, and the flow in our systems. We're never ever going to replicate the oceans. It's impossible. And if you look at some of when people are treating these corals, a lot of them are using turkey basters or powerheads to try and blast off some of these pests.
Yeah.
Is the flow in the ocean sufficient that it could be knocking a lot of these pests off into the water column, and then, like we talked about, fish maybe picking at the pests? Are they then feeding on them? There's a whole bunch of possibilities, and like Christian says, we don't know enough about it yet. It's all speculation, and I'm sure in time we will learn. But definitely having that healthy environment of the ocean means that corals can recover and thrive a lot easier than what they can in our reef tanks, I think.
Yeah, it's like all these pathogens we're learning about now, and it's still kind of unexplored. I mean, saline, clams, and
reef builders,
those kind of guys are kind of leading the way in terms of their understanding of dissolved organic carbon and how that affects the biome on acroporas, right? So you can have these bacterias, and I'm not nowhere near an expert on this, right? That the coral can send signals out to, right? And it'll do little jobs for the coral, either bring it food or whatever. It's part of the biome, right? And it's a beneficial part of the biome. And in an unfavorable environment, let's say, so when you pick it off the reef and you ship it into multiple holding tanks and you mix it with other corals, something can happen to this otherwise healthy bacteria, like it transmutates. There's like a trigger there through a stress factor or kind of exposure to mass organics. I don't fully understand it yet, but it triggers that bacteria to then become kind of pathogenic, and then things like Vibrio or whatever it is can kind of get out of control and feed on the biome of the coral. Well, that's not really, well, I say it's not really happening in the ocean in a healthy environment. But you look at coral bleaching events and these El Nino heat wave events. That's what's happening to them, right? And it triggers it, and all of a sudden these community of bacteria which are living in harmony with the coral and helping the coral and against it, right, and start feeding on it. It's the same with these pests, right? So it's really interesting work, and obviously in QT I do a lot of kind of what I call these I call it microbiome reset, right? And we use a series of kind of antibacterial and antibiotic products throughout the course of the quarantine. Different things in different measures in and out of tank to kind of cleanse it or even exfoliate. So I believe you cleanse the internals of it from any harmful ones through prolonged exposure on in-tank treatments over a series of months. And then you kind of exfoliate the flesh, the biome on the flesh, through harder kind of baths and things like that. And that does what I call like a microbiome reset. So things that are susceptible to so a few years ago, people were having problems with tennias, right? And I remember speaking to Christian at Sustainable Reefs, and he got a pathogen in his tank, and one tennias stripped, and literally every other tennias that he'd been farming for years, it just triggered something stripping. So there was like the biome turned against it, and then it was able to navigate to the same species and infect them and kill them. So through doing this method that I've been experimenting with for many years now, it doesn't happen anymore in our farm systems. We very rarely get species specific kind of pathogen outbreaks or disease outbreaks. It's kind of leading edge, but it's cutting edge, and it's very experimental. But the processes that we've put in place again help this. So we don't see that in our tanks anymore.
Wow. I'm just going to jump into the comments because I'm aware that some people have joined us and I've not said hello to you, so apologies for the delay. We've been talking pests for the last 45 minutes. It's been very informative on a Sunday morning. Thank you ever so much.
We can talk about something else other than pests.
Yes, we'll move on topic, I think, sometime. Right, let me just jump in. There's a few questions as well, which I'll try and get to. Morning, Sedders. I don't know whether we said a good morning to you. Thanks for joining us this morning. We've got East Coast Reefer with us this morning. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good Sunday, buddy. Yarek as well has come in. I think I've said hello to you so far, Yarek. Hope you're getting on all right with the zoas. Not had a great weekend himself with his tank at the minute. A bit of an issue. I think some of you have given a bit of advice in the comments, which is great of you. Morning, Haley. Thanks for coming on. Hope you're well. Hope you have a good weekend.
Haley's like an old school live stream. I remember seeing Haley involved on Aaron's Aquarium videos back in the day.
Wow. Morning, Jack Rapora. Thanks for coming on. He's saying to Reef King, potassium chloride will nuke flatworm if it's exposed to it. You agree with that, Christian? People
potassium chloride, flatworms don't like it. I think it works by osmotic shock, and the flatworm basically explodes.
All right, okay.
Not like instantly, like a bomb, but like just pops and oozes and curls up and dies.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see under a microscope. Ron is in the house. Morning, Ron. Thank you very much for joining us. Hope you're having a good one up there. Who else have we got in the house?
We've just lost our monetization. Cheers, Ron.
Oh yeah, cheers, Ron. Coral Centres Europe. Morning. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being part of this morning's show. Thank you ever so much. I think Rich is here. Morning, Rich. Local reefer to me. Hope you're well. Maybe also all the bits and bobs would eat those in the ocean too. I think there's lots that we don't know about, isn't there? It's got to say how long the hobby's been going, and hopefully will continue. There's always something to learn about. Amanda's in the house. Morning to you. Don't apologise for being late. It's nice for you to join us. The more the merrier. And I think that is everybody. Right. There's a couple of questions that some people have been asking. I will try and keep them in order so I don't miss anybody. Apologies if I do. And like Lee says, yes, if you could give us a like, that'd be really appreciated this morning, as we've rebranded the channel, as you've probably noticed. Let's have a look.
Maybe we just do a bit of an explanation of this rebrand towards the end of the stream, and
yeah, we'll get to that at the end, because we need to talk to you a little bit more about what you do and how you do it, I think, which has been great so far on the pest, mate. Appreciate that. Jay saying, this is why swapping scares me to death. I only buy corals from Signature Frags as he lowers the risk significantly for me. Do you think that's a bit of advice? Listen, I want just, all business to the side in terms of plugging yourself, just Christian, but do you think as a shop, as a retailer, that, I know we've had this conversation many, many times before, but for people watching this morning, do you think they should sort of stick with one sort of, source almost when it comes to livestock?
It's very easy for me to say only buy corals from me because I treat them for X, Y, Z. Touch wood. We've not encountered anything in the systems which could cause a problem. But I don't expect loyalty from everybody. And I mean, the whole fun of the hobby is, for me at least, when I was a hobbyist, was that going out there and finding the corals, right, and traveling the country, visiting all these different shops, and and just being overjoyed that I found something new, right? But I don't put the onus on the shops either, because the culture of the UK trade is kind of buy it, sell it, yeah. And even for tax purposes, it makes no sense to have a coral farm. When you look at things like VAT, when you claim your VAT back on a product you buy to then sell, you claim it back once, and then you pay your VAT and then you claim it back, right? In that one transaction, right? But whereas in a farm, you buy that product once and you sell it multiple times, you're paying VAT every time you sell it. So it makes no sense from a tax point of view. And even for shops cleaning corals, it's very labor intensive. And with respect, maybe a lot of the shops out there haven't got the time, the resources, the knowledge, experience to, make this conveyor belt of corals. Because you're thinking months and months and months and months in advance. It's for myself, for example, it's probably a minimum 6 months before receiving, an ice acro and getting it through my process before I can even do a first release on it. Right. So a lot of shops don't have that luxury. I think what it is, and it's important that there's that due diligence on the hobbyist. And the more we can increase this understanding of what to look for, perhaps they can set up a little quarantine system. Now, I know what it's like when you're battling your missus saying, well, I want another tank now.
Yeah.
And if you haven't got the space to do that, maybe, invest your money in someone like myself who is putting these methods in place, right, to safeguard. It's difficult. I think, unfortunately, we're in a place where, most of the shops in the country are going to have pests in them on all the corals. And if you don't know what you're looking for, it can be very difficult. I'm afraid there's no answer for that, Tom, really. No definitive answer.
Because, I mean, that links on to Upstream Detail. Thanks for that comment. Again, apologies, it was earlier on in the stream, but you've just touched on that about QT. So, I mean, he's asking, would you always recommend QT coral before it goes into your tank just to make sure the coral is pest-free? He's new to the hobby. What does he need to look out for when QTing? So that's a good question for you.
I mean, the trouble is when you're new to the hobby, you're new to stability and understanding what coral health really is. I would recommend that everybody have a QT system. I think I don't think it's feasible, for everyone to have a QT, but I think if we're going to take it seriously and you want to be serious, then the QT is something that you need to have in as part of your hobby. Otherwise, you're just going to get these things, all manner of things. So it's very difficult. But if you've got a level of experience where you can keep corals happy and alive, then you'll be able to understand very quickly with a QT system if your coral has problems or not. Right.
Okay. I was going to jump on to John Wright, and to be fair, John, good question. Because obviously the thoughts and prayers are out over to people in Florida at the minute, going through a rough time, as we know. I can imagine it's a reefer's nightmare having power cuts, etc. Christian, Mr. Meckley, ACI has no power at his farm because of the hurricane. What do you have in case of power cuts? What is your contingency?
So we've got a generator diesel generator. I've also got kind of battery backups on all the systems for the pumps, which they're nice to have. I don't think they're going to save the day. But yeah, generator, leaning on a generator. And we are looking to install a emergency generator that has an auto switch on it.
Yeah.
So if there's a power interruption, this thing just kicks in. So just trying to figure out with my electrician how to wire that up.
So I know
Yeah.
Rob's got something that's I think I showed it you the other day. He's got a really big setup, battery. I think it is battery powered. So yeah, I need to look at something myself because it isn't. I mean, I've got the generator, but idiot here didn't have the leads or any oil in it, so I couldn't do anything with it. And I had a power.
That's it. Always test that your generator works.
Always
right?
test that it works. Yeah, always test that it works.
Run it first.
Wow.
Don't just have it in a box and ready to set up when you're panicking.
Oh dear.
I've got to go and take her back out.
Yeah, all right, mate, no problem. Jason, Ripley doesn't have electricity yet, so you've coped well so far. Yeah.
So we've got a load of hamsters on their wheels.
Got a lot of hamsters in wheels. Okay. So I've got a couple of questions. If anybody in the audience wants to ask Christian anything this morning, now's the time. I mean, I know some people probably speak to him on other platforms, but let's have a look. Yeah, I want to know, what was it in particular that caused you to fall in love with SPS corals? Because there's so many different species out there, and you are pretty much, the one of the most, or if not the most well-known acro sort of grower. Why acros? Why SPS?
So in the early days, I always struggled with them, right?
Okay.
I always struggled.
Me too.
And mate, I just used to do a water change weekly, or fortnightly, and no dose. What's dosing? So it's a challenge. The fact that you can tinker that much or get everything just right that your colours look amazing, and then a day later they're gone. It's like, oh, why has that happened? So for me, for any hobby I've ever done, it has to be really difficult to keep me infused in it, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that for reefing example, it encompasses so many different trades. Like you have to be a chippy, you have to be a plumber, you have to be whatever, right? I just love the fact that it involves all these different things. And for acros, it's the challenge, and I think the colors. When you get it right, there's nothing that compares, really. I mean, yeah, I like other coral species, like Favias are a favorite of mine. Favietes, any colorful encruster. I like all corals, but it's the challenge of the acros, right? And it's getting it through the process. I think when I'm hand picking from the wild and through my suppliers, I say, right, that one's got potential. I like the look of that. And I get it through the QT process. It survives it. I get it clean. I get it into the grow out tables. It finally starts growing with good momentum, coring up. And then I cut that first frag off it, like a year down the line, maybe, or however long it takes. And I could put it out for sale. That's like the hobby for me. That's where the buzz is for me. It's like I knew that had potential, and now it's just amazing. Do
you have certain rules that you have with yourself in terms of taking these frags, or do you have to stop temptation? Because I mean, come on, it's like a sweet shop, your store for SPS lovers.
Don't kill it. That's the main rule, isn't
it?
Generally,
yeah. No, is there ever, do you have to sort of say to yourself, no, it's not ready to be fragged, even though you're dying to frag it, or you've got a bit of peer pressure maybe from people wanting a piece?
I tend to ignore the peer pressure because I've had a lot of that over the years. Although I'll always honor somebody if they, they've expressed an interest in something particular. I think for me, fragging, so you can look at it this way: they take an acro, you can cut all the branches off it and base them out and sell those, and then that colony stunts. It's not the right way to do it. So, I mean, if you pick particular species, you can train them to grow better with selective fragging. So, for example, tennis. With a tennis, if you were to cut all the branches off it, you will stunt that mother 9 times out of 10. Whereas if you start it slow and cut 1 off or 2 off and prompt accelerated growth through healing. Then a few months later down the line, and I think you have to wait about 6 weeks minimum between cuts, because there's a process where there's calcium traveling through the mesenterial network, and if you make another cut elsewhere, that can actually pause in the middle of a branch and kind of calcify inside the skeleton and stunt the coral. So you have to wait about a minimum of 6 weeks between cuts, I feel. Probably a month, but I'll give it 6 weeks. But you can train it. So you take one branch, and then that'll start growing with acceleration. And then you can start training the other branches off. And that way you'll improve the growth rate of the coral, right? So I think every species kind of behaves differently with this. And it's just something you pick up over the years with handling the same species over and over again.
Right. Okay.
So does that make sense? It's all
it does. It does.
Yeah.
So you're not always fragging the same branch then, or from the same part. You're moving it around. Is there, do you ever get to a point where you think, well, I shouldn't have cut that off because it's probably not ready? Just say to yourself 6 weeks minimum, or
what happens is when you've got a delicate species like a Cytherea, which grows in quite a lacy branch formation, and you cut one branch with the bone cutters, and then the other side just snaps, and you're like, for God's sake. And you start again. Now I've got two colonies. So yeah, that happens a lot. It's frustrating.
He's asking you about grafted corals. Ever thought about selling grafted corals, especially gonnies? Likes a gonny.
So it's interesting. I haven't got any grafted gonnies. I haven't. So over the years, I've experimented with grafting, and I know like Top Shelf and Worldwide Corals do it, and they do it by putting two corals of the same species of different colors next to each other and letting them grow into each other. And the way I've done it is kind of totally accidental at first. So, and I've noticed this, but say through a stress event like a bacterial bloom, you're more likely to get, if you can survive that, right? You coral survive it, you're more likely to get like a pigment infection into a different coral. So like that red coral might pick up a bit of brick green. I'm sure we've all seen it in our tanks over the years where you've seen these pigment infections, right? So this is a different way of grafting. And what you can do is you isolate that area. So you can do what's called training the graft. So you cut that area off the coral. So you've got as much of, or 50-50 in terms of color, and rebase that out. What tends to happen with a pigment infection is that color will take over. So if it takes over, that's fine. You just reintroduce that back to the mother colony. So you take another bit off the mother and you let them grow into each other again. You follow this process many times, and what will happen is the graft will stabilize. And that means the colors will just grow at random through all the new growth. One won't take the other over. That's pretty interesting. The other way, obviously, like I said, with what Worldwide and Top Shelf are doing, is they put different color corals next to each other. Yeah. And that happened with our Teneus, that hard graft Teneus. I was fragging Teneus one day, and I had bits left over in the fragging pot, or just what I store them in before I glue onto plugs. And I glued these two pieces together, and they were different acros. I didn't realize they were different colored Teneus. And I put them in the tank, and under the lights I saw, well, that's wrong. And I just put it to the side and forgot about it. And then over the months, I kind of saw that not only had they grown together without killing each other, they'd fused, and then the colors started to travel through one another. And all of a sudden, these two frags became a new coral with all of the colors, which was quite incredible. The growth rate was much slower, though. I think when you're grafting two different ones to make one, the growth rate's a lot slower, yeah. But we're growing it out. I've actually got some frags coming up at that. So, no, grafted corals are interesting. I've sold many over the years, grafted kind of PC rainbows and things like that. I kind of think it's a fad, and it'll kind of, go out of fashion. I do think it's a fad. I know there's a lot of Malaysian Teneus being found with striations of different colors. They call them chimeras.
Right.
But yeah, it's interesting. It's something I've noted through. So bacterial bloom, stress events, you'll get that pigment infection, and then you can train that graft, stabilize it. Yeah, it's
so if we were to look into your head, it would just be literally fields of acropora, I take it. Yeah, and maybe chocolate rivers. But
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Jump on. A few more questions. Liam, he's asking you, what secret sauce did you stumble across that made a big noticeable difference with sticks, i.e. aminos, modern reef, not getting bacteria blooms, reading them bedtime stories?
Yeah, singing to them.
Yeah.
The secret sauce, and everyone's going to hate me. So I'm a farm, right? I'm not a retail shop that sells snake oils, the latest, greatest product. You can succeed with whatever product you use, I would say. Whatever dosing formula, you know, whatever brand it is, you will get success if you know what you're doing. I don't think it matters what you use. There's no secret sauce in terms of branding. The real secret sauce is knowing just to leave it alone.
Yeah.
It's looking at the major contributors to coral health, right? And that is 1, stability, 2, good lighting and flow, and 3, massive reduction of any dissolved organics. So that's cleaning out your detritus. Any precip that's got any nasties always going to harbour any nasties growing. Just remove it from the tank, right? So, you know, a new amino acid comes on the scene, which aminos can be bad because they just almost directly dissolved organics, and they build to that accumulation, right? But you know, a new product, the latest greatest coral food comes to the scene, everyone gets behind it. Oh, if you use this, I get an amazing feeding response. I tell you now, you are going to get better results from your corals if you clean your sandbed, right? Forget the foods, forget the bottles.
Interesting.
Just maintain your system. Good husbandry is the key to keeping good acros. You know, it's just being disciplined and doing the work.
See how clean my substrate is by any chance?
Sorry?
Can you just see how clean my substrate is by any chance?
Beautiful.
I can actually.
Beautiful.
Is that part of
This
your
is the
weekly
next phase,
routine then, Drippy? Sorry, is that part of your weekly routine then? The sand, is that what you're doing at the minute?
You talking to Pond?
Now I'm talking to you. Is that what you're doing at the minute with your weekly routine? Cleaning your sandbed?
I bought a massive
Careful.
yeah. I bought a massive gravel vac from AAC, and it is mustard, mate. It is mustard. And it allows me to sift through all the crushed corals. I moved to crushed coral so I could ramp my flow up. And yeah, it's just keeps that. Listen, I've made so many cock ups since I started. You learn, right? If you don't learn, then you're an idiot. Do you know what I mean? Because if nothing changes, nothing changes. I take the time to speak to people like, you know, Pond, you, others, Paul Hughes in AAC, etc. And it's amazing. Yeah, listen, I was one of them that went out and bought all the snake oils when I was first in. Do you know what I mean? Bit of this, bit of that, bit of this, bit of that. Yeah, stability is something I've been working on now for what, a month, 6 weeks. I started a new job. My life was so I was so knackered when I started it. The tank suffered. That's just the truth. The tank suffered. Things built up, and now I'm sort of reaping the rewards, should I say, over the last however long for just continued commitment, I suppose is the word.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think I'd definitely second that. I think for me, it's keeping that regiment. I've said this for God knows how long. I'll keep saying it. It's that find something that works for you, your lifestyle, but keep, you know, the consistency for me is the key bit.
And I've only got frags, right? Gaza said on there, is that a new Red Sea? I can't see any coral. No, you won't from this far away, mate. Trust me. But the corals that are in there, the small frags that are in there, and I've sent a couple of photos to Pond, and you've seen them over the week.
Yeah.
They are growing nicely. They're coloured nicely. Funny enough, Josh, when you was talking about your strawberry shortcake, I've had one for about 18 months. It's never done nothing. And over the last, I don't know, six weeks, it has just started to take off more than it's ever took off before. I've got a lovely bit of red planet that Tom got from Bogdan or whatever his name was. What was his name? Mustafa or something, wasn't it?
It's Booland Trout.
Booland.
People that know Trout in the north. Lovely guy.
That started encrusting all around the back, so that I'm hoping it's got enough strength in it to then table out. But all of this is visible, daily visible signs that I haven't seen for a long time. That just happens to coincide with me, with my commitment to my tank. And like Christian said earlier, when you see an it's the challenge, and I love the challenge. Like when I said to you earlier about Josh, I know it's painful at the moment, but you're going to learn so much that it's just, that's all the stuff that keeps me going. Do you know what I mean? Like, even if I'm failing, I know at some point I'm going to learn out why. And then that's the stuff that keeps my fire burning, man. Even my tank looks like a pile of shit. Like, just, oh, sorry. I'm going to learn, or you know, that's the stuff that keeps me going. And seeing these acros grow, which everyone is well aware is the hardest, you know, it's the hardest thing to grow. Acropora, it's it's amazing feeling.
You get used to your tank being so average for so long that when something goes right, it's almost a bit of a surprise that something's actually going right.
I think when everyone's like me, if your tank is average for a long time, you kind of just think, I'm crap at this. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm crap at this. And then what normally comes, or what I did was, well, let's try a little bit of that and a little bit of that, and all of a sudden, all of the old school methodology that Christian explained, right, goes out the window. And now you're topsy-turvy Tony. Do you know what I mean? It's all over the gap. So, yeah.
Just while we're on you for a minute, Rama's asking you what's behind the good vibes and the reserved pillow, which is a surprise. What tanks are you? What lights? Sorry, are you running?
I leave them there.
Mr. Drip? I think you should. They're good diffusers.
I know. They are XR30 Gen 6 blues.
Thank you very much. Right, I'm just going to jump into the chat again. So what's with the modern reef, Tom, behind me? So it's not a plug. I just didn't want a white wall. So Darren, I am going to dose this. My system is getting ready for me to put a dosing solution on. I was going to run the calcium reactor, which I'm still going to run. But one thing I noticed literally in the last month in my tank was, you know, I love pH. We always going about pH.
Was really?
The pH you've never heard of it? Great, no. Great stuff. The pH started dropping quite a bit. And again, schoolboy error. It was quite obvious why it was dropping. The weather has obviously changed. We are now, you know, in the autumn period. So doors, windows closed, etc. So yeah, there's just less fresh air coming into the house with the tank, should I say, in the lounge downstairs. Yeah, so pH was dropping, so I upped the calquasser, up the dosing to try and combat it. It wasn't enough, really. It's helped a little bit, but Christian just sorted me out with some of the CO2 remover. I need to change the media in that. And yeah, the last thing I want to be doing is adding a calcium reactor to the mix, because if, for those that know, you should know, obviously, your effluent coming out of your calcium reactor will be at a very low pH, so it can pull your pH down even more. So it will actually make the system worse, not better. So I'm going to try the modern reef, probably 3 to 6 months, see what happens with it. I've seen some good things. I was going to try the bolus from Fauna, but I've decided to go with the modern reef for the time being. And yeah, what's his space?
Do you want to be a guinea pig?
No, not yet. I'm curious. I know, Christian, you're going to. Sorry, we've talked to you this morning, so we've gone off topic a little bit. I'm just reading the comments, but you're going to try. Are you going to try the bolus in one of your new systems? Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, Doug's kind of made himself. So Doug Direct at Frag Farms he spent so much time learning about the buffer system, right? That he could probably do a PhD in it, right, at this point. So, 100% interested to give it a go and obviously make some observations at system. I'm trying it. Why is he laughing?
I'm trying to
convince this guy to do it because he's running for him.
He's probably reading the comments and getting. This is what it used to be like on a Friday on the Friday night stream, when you used to come on and people just spat the beer, tea, whatever they were drinking because of your sense of humour, shall we say, Mr. Drip. Anyway.
Thanks for that, Jay.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a go. Yeah.
Gaz is asking you, can Christian talk us through what he doses, makes his own? We covered that bit. So, Mr. Pond.
Yes, sir.
Anything you dose in particular in the farm that you can share with the audience? What are you running? What's your system?
For a dose? So, okay. So without giving it away,
Drum roll.
Think about what corals get in nature and how can you best replicate that, right? That's what I'll say. So I dose all manner of things. So we work with
But
bacteria.
you modern reef, don't you? You put all the trace elements in. You put fluoride in. You put a bit of this, put a bit of that in.
Oh yeah, so trace elements. Honestly, whatever's low. I see trace elements a bit like food. I think it's more like the Jake Adams approach to trace elements. I think if you add a bit, you know they're getting it. I don't really kind of get anal about ICPs. I do an ICP just to check there's no contaminants. I'll be doing a lot more kind of endoc kind of testing in the future, but I think with endocs as well for dissolved organics, if you skim kind of heavy and you run kind of organic removers and bits and bobs, you can pretty much keep your dissolved organics down. Obviously, everything that you add to a tank is going to dissolve into an organic, right? So just kind of keep that level down. So I use trace elements a bit like food. It's just coral foods, really. Just mix everything up. I'm not loyal to any one brand. I think what I will say is I think if you make that mix as diverse as you can and all-encompassing as you can, try and think about that and how to do it in such a way that it isn't going to pollute. That's going to benefit, right?
I'll tell you what, Pond, what might be helpful to some, bearing in mind you run a coral farm, not a tank. Why are you smirking, Tom?
You should just call him Pond all the time. This makes me laugh.
You can't call me Christian, but whatever.
It's too boring. You run a coral farm that obviously has fish in your tanks. What do you feed your fish? Because obviously your corals are your livelihood. You need to keep an eye on nutrients probably more than anyone because you rely on it for your livelihood. So what do you feed your fish in your tanks?
I feed a bit of everything. So, okay, if my nutrients are low, I will feed a high-fat, high-protein food, right? It's probably going to have a lot of waste with it.
What's low for you, Pond?
Well, if my corals look pale, or
you can't help but laugh at you. You need to be in a tank. That's what you need to be with a lid on it.
I'd rather be in there than be on this.
Oh dear.
Sorry, resume.
It's all right. So say if they're low, like a 0.03 on a phosphate, I'll feed something a bit fatty, a bit more messy. If they're quite high, I'll probably feed some sort of probiotic food. So like the Reefers stuff from BC UK puts probiotics in that. It kind of has a leveling effect where you feed it and you don't really see that nutrient gain. Or I might mix in some Reef Active or some Coral Balance, something like that, that's going to have that probiotic effect again to kind of neutralize the nutrient gain, just to keep them stable as I can. Right? But a varied diet again.
A bit like ourselves, yeah?
A bit like ourselves, mate, yeah. You can't live on steak every day, right?
Some more than others. Right, I'm just going to jump in again. Some more questions. Thanks again, everybody in the comments section for asking this morning. Liam's asking, we've spoke previously about pathogens. What do you look for when treating for pathogens, and how do you deal with that? With the UK take on antibiotics, etc., are you treating just proactively?
So I think I kind of got into that in terms of the QT method, right, with kind of the pathogens and disease. And I mean, I'm talking about like that biome reset, if you like. For other things, which are like ciliates and things like that, which cause white band or black band disease or green bore algae, they're things that I'm looking for. Certainly on reception of the corals. And you can see these generally in the base. I'll say to the supplier, I don't want any rotten bases. And you'll get a colony with shadowing in it. You'll see shadowing, or you'll see signs of recession. You'll see stains in the skeleton, and it's about just cutting those out. You just keep cutting until you get a clean band. that pretty much, I mean, facilitates, you're looking for those, the signs in the skeleton, like little kind of black squiggly worms and signs of the recession. Again, you could just kind of cut those out. I think the antibiotic through the process seems to have a good effect in eliminating those from entering the major systems. I think, again, it just comes down to having an eye and knowing what you're looking for. I mean, Jack, he brought me a frag and he says, "Oh, it's not doing much." And I was like, "All right, I'll give it a go. I'll give it a go." And it was a colony. And I looked at it in the bag and I said, "That's got green boar algae." He's like, "How can you tell?" I says, and you can tell, like, so sometimes it can be quite opaque, the flesh, and you can see colours underneath it. For the green boar algae, that kind of stains the colour of the flesh. So you can see there's a massive difference in healthy flesh and flesh that's got green boar under it. I said, "Oh, well, that's green boar algae." He's like, "Oh, okay." So we went out to the saw and we were able to just keep cutting the skeleton to show, look, this is unhealthy. You don't want this in your system, because you have, like, think of the rings of a tree, yeah? Well, on the outer ring, underneath the flesh, you'll just see a band of green. Same with some of, like, the psilate issues, right? You'll see these different bands of staining and colours. You just keep cutting it, and once it's clean, you then cut again. You sacrifice a good amount of healthy flesh. Obviously, then it goes into the QT. Obviously, if you see any more issues with it, you know to deal with it. Generally, you don't. Hope that answers that.
Thanks for that.
Okay.
Over to Jay. Jay's asking, Christian, do you get frustrated with UK coral bans like Scullies and everyone else in the world when everybody else in the world, can buy them? What are your frustrations with coral farming? Good question.
I mean, yeah, it's frustrating, the coral bans, because you think to yourself, well, why, if the rest of the world are getting them? So I do find it frustrating. The Scully, something's really interesting happened. So I don't know who he came out with. The first time I saw it was on Chummingham's Reef, and I don't know where he got the information from. Might have been Sustainable Reefs. I'm not sure who gets the absolute credit on it. But with a Scully, you can cut the bottom off a Scully. You cut it really close to the flesh, it'll start budding a baby. What is amazing is something standard like a red or like a bleeding apple can grow a master. And over the course of about 6 months, I think it takes to get to full adult size. So you just prop the Scully up on its side. You can propagate a baby out the bottom.
You've shown me that picture, yeah. That was
yeah. So I've got a customer, Ross. I think he's Lightning Reef on Instagram. I'm not sure. I'd have to check his Instagram, but Ross, he's done it. And he's been showing me progress updates, and he's grown a master out of a bleeding apple. It's incredible. So that's something I'd like to start doing. I don't know if it would be possible with other kind of single polyp species. I know, for example, people will kind of pizza slice a Scully. I don't like the idea of that, or an acantho, or a Sinarina or something like that. I don't know if it's possible to use the same technique with those species. Maybe. I don't know if there's enough people experimenting with it yet. I'm sure there are. In terms of my, frustration, I think they'll come back in. Either they will or they won't. I think we just got to get better at keeping corals so we don't lose them from the hobby. One of my frustrations with coral farming, when I mess up and kill things, that's a massive frustration, because obviously it kills the animal and it hits me very hard financially.
Yeah.
They're my frustrations, because you get to the point where you think, Christ, surely I have messed up in every single way you can mess up at this point.
Possible.
Right? Yeah. There can't be another way to mess up. And lo and behold, it happens again.
Happens again.
And it'd be something simple that you should be doing, or if you took the time to think about it, you planned it out methodically, then it wouldn't have happened. Those are the great things.
You spend obviously a lot of time in your shop farm, and I mean you do, because you told me the other day, I didn't even know you did this. You go and do a bedtime check, don't you? You go back to the shop. So if you've been having some family time with Louise and the kids, and you had your tea and whatever, you will then drive back to the shop at what sort of time? It's late sometime, isn't it? Like 12, like 11, midnight, and do a
midnight check, we call it, or a late evening check. And it's a chance for me, when everything's chilled out from the day, I'm not under the time pressures of getting home, seeing the kids and having tea or whatever. I could just go into the shop and just inspect everything, just have a good look around and feel completely chilled out when I'm doing it, right? And I think that's the important thing. And that's when you start to see things that you've missed. I mean, for example, I think it was, a month or so ago, where I came in and did my midnight check and found a puddle underneath that 8-foot tank. And thought,
yes, I remember that now.
Empty this right now because we had a leak.
Yeah.
And it busted seams while I was emptying it. So it just, I think after that as well, it just makes me feel rest a bit easier, at night, because the thing with having a coral farm like this is leaving it. And I think anyone in a trade who's got a shop or a coral farm will know exactly what I'm talking about when I say, when you're not there, you're stressed about it. You're thinking about it. So things like holidays and, they're never going to happen. I remember when Leo was talking about it, he gets more than 2 hours away and he's getting anxiety, right?
Well, we were at Aqua, sat around a table in the pub at the, I can't remember where we stayed, over the Old Mill or whatever it was called. And everybody else was on the phone, Instagram or whatever, texting, whoever. And you're just sat there transfixed on your Mastertronic, weren't you? You were literally like, what is it doing? What's it set at? I mean, that is, that is your lifeline, I suppose.
He actually forgot something. What was it you couldn't access? You remember that? What was it?
Yeah,
you
he was having a meltdown.
So the apex keeps coming off of connection, which is so frustrating. Lee's going to help me fix that, I hope. When you come down for this fish, Lee, come down this week, mate, if you want a harlequin.
Funny thing is, when earlier, when you were talking about slugs, I was picturing you on the go-kart track of that weekend. You know that?
What did you call me? A slug with a twitch?
He said, slug with an itch.
You're going around the corner. You're like a slug with an itch.
Oh, dear. Right, we've got a few more here in the comments section. Let's jump back in. Upstream Detail is asking, what's the main thing to do to gain stability? Now, you've been talking to Mr. Drip about his alkalinity recently, haven't you? Because that was a bit all over the place. So, yeah, good question. Oh, nice of you to join us. You need some Velcro pants on you with that seat, mate.
I might have one.
The main thing to get stability. Christ. Okay, right. So this is how I describe stability to people, right? So imagine you're in hospital and you're attached to a heart rate monitor, right? And you've got your pulse. You got beep, 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 right? That for a reef tank is mass instability, right? So what we want for a reef tank is that perfect flat line, like beep.
When you're dead.
So, sorry?
When you're dead.
When you're dead, right? You don't really reef tanks to be dead, but this is, just picture it like a heart rate monitor, right? So your pulse, or every time you talk about alkalinity consumption, right? Every time you add your alkalinity, you've got a peak. That alkalinity is consumed, and then you go to a trough, right? You add it again, you get a peak. So that measure between those lines is instability. So how do we create a smoother line? Well, you add less alkalinity more often.
More often, yeah.
Right? So
an echo. Sorry.
Oh, what?
Here he is.
Oh, dear.
Grippy, everybody.
That makes sense. Josh, your tank still looks amazing. It does, mate, on the picture. I hope we get sorted.
Yes,
we all do. Yeah, it definitely does. How is your Potter's Angel Drip? Is it all right?
Getting fat.
Getting fat. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
He's doing well, mate. He's
good.
Where is he? He is, I don't know if you can see him. He's just coming to the front here next to the Mitratus.
We can't see him, mate.
No, your chair's in the way.
Chair's in the way, mate. And that big quiff of yours.
Right in the middle here. Can you see him?
Yeah.
Vaguely, mate. A little bit, briefly, yeah. Anyway.
No.
Take a picture. Has his colours changed much?
Do you want to see him? Yeah, they have. Yeah, he's orange and he's blue around his tail, and underneath him, the blues come right out. Yeah. He's
nice.
Yeah.
So I want to jump back to that question we had.
Pygmy Angel.
Yeah, before the one about stability. Obviously, Christian's just said there about what he likes to see. I think the way in which you're going to be able to gain that, would you agree, Christian, would be test more often. The more you test, the more you have an understanding of what your tank is doing. So if you're testing every hour of the day, you know what your tank's doing across the day and when you need to dose correctly, rather than just doing, let's say, once a week. You're not going to have any idea of what your swings are across the day and across the week.
100%, Josh. So every time you test, you either know that you're where you want to be, and if you're not, it creates an action. You're either high or you're lower. If you're lower, you need to add some. If you're high, you need to decrease the dose, right? So if as many actions as you can complete for stability, the more stable your tank's going to be. And quite rightly, Josh, that's only going to happen through regular testing.
Awesome.
Rama's asking you, Drippy. So running the crushed coral for substrate has allowed you to run vortex lower then?
I think it means higher.
Higher.
Oh, you mean closer to the sand bed? Sorry, do you mean?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'm down here, and I was going to buy yesterday. I'm thinking of buying one of those. You know, have you seen the Tunzi nano streams where they're literally the ball, but you can move them in any direction? I love the MP40s, but it's very much straight line. Do you know what I mean? So I might get a Tunzi in the back corner and have it diagonally.
Get a stream wave or wave stream, whichever way around it is. Get one of them in.
What's that?
One of the ones that oscillates that we looked at.
Yeah. It's salt water and that mechanism. I just listen. It's a great idea, and it looked the nuts. But I'll wait for someone else to try it first.
It's been out a while, mate.
I think there's quite a few people who are using them, mate. If you look at like quite a lot of European tanks.
Yeah, Viking Reaper uses them.
Mara's Reef, she's got them on hers.
Yeah,
she's got the German brand, right?
I don't know what brand it is, but yeah, it'll all be sort of a very similar concept. I'm going to guess.
At Aqua, I saw the power heads on the bottom of them, and all of them looked relatively small-ish. Do they do bigger ones in?
Is the power head not your choice of what you put on it?
Big ones. There's a German company who makes some quite hardcore, durable looking units.
Well, just think, for example, right, if you've got a tank the size of Tom's, the ones I saw ain't going to move a lot of water in that tank.
Is the oscillating mechanism separate to? So you buy the pump and you put your own pump on it. The oscillating part of it is just.
I believe you're just buying the arm, aren't you?
I think it's just the oscillating part that you're buying, Drippy, and then you put whatever wave maker you want on it. It's just to create that turn.
It'd be good for you. You could use it to kill your air, mate.
He does supply him with the pump because
he's got a head like an onion. He's letting me have it. Quickly, I haven't got bracing on my glass, so that was another reason why I was looking at thinking I don't know how it would sit on the top of my tank.
So I think he's missing a trick there. He should make a clamp that fits on the vertical rather than the horizontal.
6-foot tanks that come with bracing, the 5s like this don't. So.
Morning, Stefan. Thanks for joining us. He's saying he's got a video dropping tonight, all on Modern Reef with Ali. Modern Reef is magic in a bottle. I'll look forward to watching that later on. Yeah, nice. I am quietly curious to see what it'll do. So we shall see. Has everybody seen JCO has just launched? Yeah, we've seen the MP40. Saw that the other week, didn't we? We were talking about that. Yes. Drippy, is there a shower curtain there for when you do a water change?
I mean, it's about time he got his own back because I've let him have it on his Friday night for about 3 years. Fair play, Jay. Yes.
Gaz is debating doing Carl Quasser. Talk about that another day. Have you thought about spinning your extractor fan at 180 to bring in some fresh air fan? I have, but it's noisy. That's the thing. I mean, my tank's
also it's going to make your room freezing.
Yeah, and I have thought about it.
He's a cold soul anyway, Josh, so that wouldn't bother him.
Oh dear. What else have we got in here? I think that's about it.
I mean, for the man that would do anything for high pH, I mean, a bit of cold in the room. I mean, what's that? Come on. You've got some awful slippers you can put on. I've seen them.
Well, no, we'll not go there. We'll not go there.
pH was king.
pH is king for me. pH is king. But I think there's other parameters that I need to be focusing on.
So you've divulged from pH. Is that what you're saying?
No, pH is king, but I also think that it is only king to an extent when other things, if other things are out of balance.
So you're a fraud.
Alkalinity being one of them. No, I'm
So
not
you're
saying
a
I'm a fraud. I'm not saying I'm a fraud. Weekly water changes for me. I did try to go back to fortnightly, but again, I agree, Chris. So you would say, Christian, doing less often because you didn't, because of how much I was doing in a water change. I think that was sort of the conversation we had. So things weren't, being absorbed or used up. And from a costing point of view, financially, it didn't make sense either. So it was music to my ears when you said slow it down. But I have seen a few issues, as you know, from talking to you by slowing it down. So I think I need to do it weekly, but just not change as much. So back to the old 10%.
Tom, you slowed
I'm
down
not
years
sure
ago.
if those issues water change related, or whether it's kind of more that you're getting into that year mark with your tank now. So
it is
associated issues from the methods are kind of rearing their ugly head. I think we discussed that further, mate.
We did. Right then. What else have we got here? Morning, Nick. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're well.
What is going on in this chat?
I don't know. I'm getting to it now.
No, you don't want to get to it, honestly. What I can see.
Oh, really?
I'm not even looking at it at the minute.
Salinity is king. Yes, I'd have to agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
Oh.
Airline to skimmer, Tom. Yeah, I do that. I can't do that, Gaz. You know where the tank is. The missus is very accommodating as it stands with a 9 and a bit full tank in the living room. Start putting wires.
It's built in the ceiling. Can't you run it through your extractor?
Yeah, that's what Liam was saying with the fan, but it's no, not for now. It made the kitchen vibrate, that fan, mate. So I need to stop. There's only so far you could push your other half, and I think I am literally at the cliff edge with that. Anyway. Has anybody got any more questions for Christian? Please drop them in the chat. We're getting up to sort of an hour and a half mark, as you can see. So anything you want to know that we haven't touched on? Anything you want to talk to us about?
One thing I was going to ask you, Christian, obviously you've talked about your quarantine, and I'd imagine it's something that isn't really replicable in the home. Obviously, to an extent it might be, but if you were to recommend a thorough enough quarantine setup that someone can set up in the home, what do you think it would be?
I mean, it's space, right? If you've got the space to set up a tank, do it. If you can keep a tank heated, even if you've got a hang on the back filter and you are just dosing, whatever. It doesn't have to be all singing or dancing. It's just a tank with water you can keep stable. Keep it stable, get it mature, keep it stable, and it's going to be better than nothing.
Would you even worry about sort of a mature system, or would you just say it can be sort of a fairly clean, sterile system in that you can just maintain those parameters for a set period of time? What sort of time frame would you look at for keeping the corals in there?
A minimum of 3 months, I'd say. I mean, I've had pests that I've not known about come out of otherwise healthy coral after 2.5 months and been like, where's this come from? So I'd say a minimum 3, maybe 4. Enough cycles that you can rebase and grow a few times, and you can obviously give them multiple treatments, whatever you decide you want to do with them, and they've got recovery time. You don't want to put them in a tank where they're just going to try and survive or come out of QT in ill health. You really want to try and ensure optimum health whilst in that QT environment. That's essential, that recovery, that quick recovery. So I'd say don't bother if it's just going to be something that's going to swing and be a mess and probably be a detriment to the coral. You're probably going to give yourself more headaches. Certainly, if you can, you can find a little bit of space somewhere, it's worth doing it, even if it's like a 1 foot, a little nano tank or something, as long as you can keep it stable.
Yeah, awesome.
John Rat's asking, what salt and water changes do you use, Christian, at the farm?
What's that? Sorry.
What salt and water changes does Christian use at the farm?
Leroy ain't got any kids. I think Ron's getting a bit confused there in the chat. Someone could let
currently. So I do about a fortnightly water change. Obviously, we ship a lot of corals, so we get like micro water changes when we're shipping. And I'll also remove the detritus, visible detritus, from the tables whenever it starts to accumulate. The salt I'm using at the moment is Fawn and Marin. Seems to be a little issue with increased aluminium, certainly in a batch that we've got. So the salt that I will be moving back to is going to be Nios, because I can't fault it. It might be low in a few trays, but it's so cheap because they make it in house. There's just, you know, in the commercial environment we are, we're going through, you know, 6 buckets of salt a month, maybe more. It just makes sense just to have a cheaper salt. You know, it's clean, mixes well. So yeah, Nios.
It's very well.
Very interesting. Quick question here from East Coast Reefer. Sorry, Christian, what is your all-time favorite coral? Any picture you can share, or can I Google it?
All-time favorite coral. My all-time favorite acro would be Wicked Orchid. Wicked Orchid.
Okay.
So that's an Acropora cytherea. It's the same species as Vivid Confetti. That's more famous. Pinky the Bear, same species, different colour morph. I think it is the most beautiful acro, personally. There's a picture on my Instagram. We could share it to the Reefers Network Instagram later.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
Where's it from in the wild?
The prettiest cythereas come from Australia. The Indo ones are a little bit dull.
Any of these you can see?
I can't see it, mate, on there.
Can you know?
Honestly, I'm looking at this through the teleprompter, so the screen's really tight.
Right, okay.
So I'm able to look at the camera.
Yeah, we'll put it on the Instagram page later. Okay. Wicked Orchid. Is that in your collection at the minute? Have you got the Wicked Orchid or something similar?
Yeah, well, I've got loads of cytherea. It's my favourite acro species. I've probably got 15 of them now.
Wow.
All different colour morphs.
And why is it your favourite then? What makes it stand out?
Just because if they're the multicoloured colour morph, they're just really pretty. Really pretty. Good growers, easy-ish to keep. They can be a little bit sensitive if you mess up. But they're good growers and they just look really pretty.
What do you find is the hardest acro to keep? Have you found?
Speciosa.
Yeah, it's a Speciosa, yeah. Yeah, very difficult Speciosa. You can get them through the process. Why? It's very difficult to keep. I succeed with Speciosa in low light, but the problem with that is you don't develop the nice, pretty colours. So the Speciosas that I've kept alive and are still alive and growing are looking all right because they're healthy, but they just haven't got that real vibrancy, that depth of colour.
So what is that thing then, from the wild to the aquarium? What is that thing? Do you think is the reason why you can't replicate what nature can out there?
I just think nobody's found that secret with them yet. We're all experimenting. I mean, Top Shelf said, "Oh, don't take it above 25 degrees." You know, that's how they're having success with them. You know, I'm saying, you know, lower light is helping me grow them. And I know a farmer in Portugal. He's given them 0.15 phosphate, so quite an elevated phosphate level, and he's hitting them with 700 par out of LEDs. And he says they're growing.
Wow.
So, you know, medium flow, not too much flow. I think there's just a lot of unknowns with that particular species at the minute, right? And everyone's got their own kind of idea of what's best for them, but nobody's really got any proven long-term success with that species. I mean, keeping them going.
You've got one doing really well, though, haven't you, in the shop? In the little.
Yeah, so I've got one probably at about 20 months now growing. So over a year and a half, and it's okay, but it's not got their most amazing colours. I think that the next thing with that is to chop some frags off it and then just start acclimating some higher light and see how they do. See if they're going to be hardier because they've been grown in tank. I think they probably will be. Anything that's grown in tanks automatically hardier for us.
It looks like your name has been changed now, unfortunately. Everybody's referring to you as Pond, thanks to Mr. Drip. So just saying...
I was called Bundy at school. Bundy.
You were called Bundy at school.
You know, I've had it been called home enough.
Well, you ever think about selling fish? He needs a new one.
I can get you fish. I do special request fish. I just for me, the focus ain't there. You know, if you want a nice fish, go and see Paul Hughes at AAC, or go and see like Wolf Cakes up the road, or you know, Duncan at Yorkshire Reefs, or Abyss in Manchester. Go and see those guys for your fish. I'll just focus on corals.
Lazy.
Josh, hey guys, unfortunately my blue tank passed by suddenly frantically bouncing around the tank like crazy. Then went sideways and passed within a minute. Dear. Oh dear. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, that's not nice.
Oh dear.
It's quite traumatic when a fish dies like that.
To be honest, it can obviously we have no idea what's caused it, but I don't know if any of you have ever seen the video. It was of I believe it was like a public aquarium, I think in like Japan, and someone used a flash camera, and they had I think it was a yellowfin tuna. Reacted to that. Yeah. Reacted to the flash and flew around the tank like that, and then ended up hitting the glass. Yeah, so whether or not your fish has been spooked by something and has hit the glass and has caused something similar, speculation. But it's just something for people to bear in mind. I think obviously having flashing around the tank can cause a reaction in the fish, and then obviously with a glass side to a tank, it isn't unheard of fish swimming into them at high speed. So just something to be aware of.
No phosphorus.
I mean,
no. You shouldn't have any nitrate.
Alkalinity 4.91.
I can't work out whether it's 13.4.
Whether it's 13.4 or 4.91.
Yeah, but what's the 4.91? So you've got 10 ppm kh miles kilometers an hour.
Yeah, it timed how quickly the fish was traveling.
I'm getting to the fridge for another beer, that is.
Yeah, it is actually.
Rapid.
0 ppm actually. 0, let's say 10.
I don't know if there's another that's going to type something else after the 4.
Oh, sorry.
Josh.
What? Oh, you
Josh.
Sorry.
No, not you. Sorry, Josh. Mally,
Yeah.
if there's anything else on there, because we can't figure out which one we know. Obviously, nitrite and nitrate, phosphate.
No, I think phosphate's 10 because he's got ammonia 0, nitrite 0, nitrate 0,
okay.
phosphate 10.
Alkalinity 4.91. Yeah.
But then he said KH 13.4, alkalinity 4.91. That doesn't make sense because it's the same reading.
What passed my tank and spooked it?
Potentially that could be what it is. And you've spooked it and it's swum into something. And
I'll tell you when I learned that fish can be spooked quite badly is when I had a fox face. If anyone's noticed that, and then it gets spooked or it feels threatened in any way, and it camos up to where it looks like it's been in a house fire. That's when I noticed that fish really are, you know what I mean? You know, anyone who's had a fox face will know.
I'm gonna have a look, mate, and I'll let you know.
In a house fire.
Looks
Oh
like
dear.
And so I'm very careful with things like that, particularly at night when the tank lights are off.
Oh dear. Nios salt for the win. Yeah. I know Liam's a big advocate of the Nios salt. Gaz is asking you, Josh, did you see a difference in pH when you added airline to your skimmer?
Yes, 100%. Made a massive difference. I was knocking around, I think it was the low was about 7.9 at night, and the low was then eventually 8.1. So it's made a massive difference.
So
100%.
your airline is going to where, Josh?
So you can't quite see it, but where the plant is, there. So that's like a bit of like an alcovey window, and the airline runs out the back of the system, around the bottom of the skirting board, up behind the curtain, and then out the vents at the top of the window. And now it's winter, we've got those vents closed over, unless it's obviously quite humid in here. So just tape around it just to keep the draft out. So
instead of having that pipe from your skimmer to a scrubber, it just went straight outside through the vent.
No, so I've made it's a bit of a mismatch of piping down there. So I've got the airline coming in, that then goes to the skim or to the scrubber. Yeah. And then the scrubber then has an outlet pipe which branches off to the skimmer. And I've also got one of the I've teed it off so it goes off to the main skimmer, and then I've also got I think they're the Tunzi ones, the 9001 DC, like the little nano skimmers. So I've got one of those in where the overflow chamber is in the sump for the Red Sea. So you've got that sort of like settlement chamber before it goes to the socks. I've put that in there under the water without the cup on it, just as a way of pushing more air into the system. So that runs from lights out to lights on. So I've got it. It'll be running now currently, sat in there just to drive a little bit more air into the system to try and maintain that overnight pH to keep the low a little bit higher, so we haven't got as much of a, like Christian was saying with swings, it hopefully flattens the curve a little bit.
Nice.
Very snazzy.
My drip,
It's
my
messy.
That's
stripping
an
my
example
face.
of when you learn over years. Do you know what I mean? Because you ain't doing that when you first come in, unless you've been researching for years before you get your first tank.
Yeah, definitely.
I wouldn't quite go house fire though, Drippy. I would say more like maybe like a leopard print.
Maybe I had a one-off
tiger print.
What, mate? When he used to camo up, mate, he looked like he literally straight to burning building.
Oh dear. Josh Jay's asking if you Mrs. finished the washing today. No washing machine on in the background.
No, it's not on today. The clothes are all hung there drying. I did the washing yesterday, so it wasn't on today.
Oh dear. Very good. Anybody got anything for Mr. Pond or the Pond or whatever he's going to be known as?
Ponderosa.
Pond Frags.
Quite like the irony of it that it's nothing to do with ponds as well. I think it sticks well.
Pond solutions.
No pond solutions here.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh no, seriously, we've got 10 minutes left, everybody, before we wrap up this Sunday morning. So if there's anything you want to ask Christian, please get it in the comments section. I'll call it out. Okay. We're keeping you up.
We're keeping you up,
Sorry?
mate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You always keep
Jay's asking, where can we find a treasure chest? Have you stopped with that now? Is that all finished now on the page?
No, I'm quite happy to do some more treasure chests. Some lucky customers have found them in their order boxes.
I thought I'd found one and rung Tom and said, Tom,
I'm so excited.
We're going to rinse him. What do you want? And it had already been taken.
Got to be honest, they go super quick. So
I'm not surprised. Tell that story about that geezer that found that. Tell the story about that geezer who found the 45% off from what he got. He might even be in it.
So a gentleman found a 45% off discount coupon. I mean, if that would have been me and I found 45% off, I'd be like, right, let's fill the trolley.
Let's rinse him.
And he just bought a £175 frag. I thought, okay, cool. And he came into stores to pick it up and then spent the rest of his money on other stuff at full price. I was like, make the most of the offer, mate.
Oh dear.
They're the kind you want. They're the
He was happy anyway,
want.
so that's the main thing.
Gaz is asking, Pond, are you a bit stick in this pond? That's it now.
Stuck, I think. It's not even sticking, it's stuck.
Yeah, it's done, mate.
No, that's been done.
Yeah.
There's no more live streams. This is going in business background now. I'm done. Later.
Are you doing any Black Friday deals next month? Anything in the pipeline?
Might do, might not do. I don't know. Depends if it's quiet. No, we are doing something for Black Friday. Yeah,
Chips and Pond. Yes,
we are doing
that Rama.
You see, Jay made me laugh there. 45% off in Bulgzenia.
What?
Oh dear.
Hilarious.
Yes.
So, Christian, Reefers Network.
Reefers Network. This is really fun, isn't it, Tom?
It is. It's exciting. The future is exciting. So
we're excited about it. Are you going to talk about it?
No, I want you to talk about it because you can explain it better than me.
You want me to talk about the Reefers Network? Well, okay. So obviously, Jay's here today, and the Friday night live stream has been a big part of everybody's lives for many years, right? And I know a lot of people have been messaging yourself, Tom, saying, expressing their sadness or feeling like they're going to lose this thing that's become part of their lives, right? So obviously the guys have put a fantastic foundation in setting up the Friday night live stream, and obviously it's coming to an end. So me and Tom thought, well, okay, how can we build on this and do something that's good for the trade at the same time, the hobbyists? And Tom came up with this idea of the Reefers Network, right? And it's a place where hobbyists to industry professionals can get together and chat reef. So, there's an open-ended invitation there for Jay, yourself, and Paul, whoever wants to get involved. But we want a whole cast of characters. So we've got hobbyists from kind of, Drippy's level, just kind of quite new into the hobby. Eight.
What are you trying to say?
To kind of more experienced hobbyists to industry professionals. So we've got quite a good roster of guests that are going to be involved in the Reefers network. We're going to do a stream potentially every Friday. I think we'll probably fill in for that spot while the guys are away. And, and just chat reef. So we want to keep it fun, right? We don't want to lose that part of it, but we also want to bring some knowledge and some more in-depth topics so that people can really learn. So I've spoken to a few individuals kind of in the trade who would be happy to be involved. So we've got many of you guys are nowhere. So we've got Sapphire from Yorkshire Reefs who wants to get involved. She's extremely enthusiastic and knowledgeable in terms of corals and coral health and the trade and fish. So she'll be very valuable for the stream. We've got Paul Hughes. Obviously, he runs AAC. He is happy to be involved once he's got the American invasion out of the way and be a regular member of the stream. We've got Brian Schaff from TMC, Jeremy Gay from Reef Builders. We've got Craig from Aquatics Now. We've got quite a number of kind of high-profile industry professionals involved. And I think what would be really powerful is that there's none of this us and them kind of thing.
Hence
we
the
want to
name.
build this network that encompasses everyone. Everyone's involved in the hobby. Everyone loves the hobby. So why not get us all on the same platform to chat reef and talk about the subjects you want to know about?
Yep.
So we are going to be, we want you all guys to get involved, really. That's the questions you really want to get to the core of, and we'll get the right professionals online as well as guests to answer them. I mean, the idea is that the names I've just mentioned there, we're all going to be regular guests. And what we'll do is we'll rotate every week. So, for us, it's good because we don't have to commit to every week. But it's, for you guys who are watching, it's going to be, I've just read Ron's comment. It's going to be good.
Ron's involved. Ron is involved. Sorry. Yeah.
Ron's involved if he can keep himself
keep him under control.
Probably
to
not.
an extent.
Probably not. They'll be demonetized, those ones. But yeah, it's going to be really exciting. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, totally. I think that now's the time to sort of we want a collective, don't we? It's a bit of a movement, almost. To try and get everybody together. People that know me, from the Friday night, I've been banging on about LFSs not being the same as they were, and we've got to do something about it. And I think a lot of us don't realize how much we rely on each other and some of these social platforms to interact with one another, shall I say. YouTube, as we know, being the most common one of these at the minute. So yeah, it's a chance to get people together as a collective, not about somebody's in particular channel or necessarily how many likes or followers or subscribers they get. It's more about everybody who's part of the network or part of the hobby, should I say, has a voice and can input into that channel and that network. So the Instagram page, we want people to, literally share stuff on there, tag stuff in, literally let it grow organically. It's not a competition against any particular shop or a brand or another hobbyist or YouTuber. It is literally, a very neutral environment where, like Christian says, we can get industry professionals on, hobbyists come on, and the viewers can have a say and can also influence the content that we talk about, because I think that's really important. Otherwise, you're pushing people down a route that they might not necessarily want to, or their level of reefing might not be, they might not be receptive to what you're talking about. You've got a lot of different levels of experience that come on and watch these channels, and I think it's good to have something that satisfies everybody. So yeah, the phrase network was something that I thought would be good idea to try and literally just get everybody together. We know go on.
Can I just say something regarding my level of experience compared to you three and others in the chat who are multiple years longer down the road than me? That echoing what Christian said about the Friday night live stream, that thing was absolutely massive for me, right? Not only do you learn, but it's just the involvement, like you talk about the community. It just had that spirit, right? and
Yeah.
spirit is everything, right? Encapsulates everything. We might be total nerds, and people look at us strangely, you know, grown adults into this. But if that's what ignites that fire within you, you know, we all go to work. Work is mundane. We all need to go to work to survive. But this little hobby is something that keeps people proper going throughout the weeks when it gets hard. Do you know what I mean? And I think there's a geezer in the chat, and I can't think of his name. It's not a reef name. It was something design or something, who's clearly new in, the guy who put his parameters up earlier, right? I look at him, that was me nearly 3 years ago. Do you know what I mean? So without the live streams die off. The newcomer, it's a way for them to feel part of it when they probably don't feel part of it. Do you know what I mean? It's not only a place for knowledge, but it's a place to see, do you know what? There's loads happening in this hobby. It's brilliant. Come along to every little meetup.
Exactly.
Every little meetup. You know, we talked about the band on the road, didn't we? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Once every 3 months, picking a shop up and down the country and all meeting up. And I think it's things like that is so great about the hobby, because listen, 99 people out of 100 you meet during the week, they ain't into reefing.
Yeah.
The important thing for us is to leave, you know, everybody's got a different opinion on how to run a reef tank, and even down to an LFS, a shop, you know, a business. And for me, it's literally a case of, you know, scrap that, you know, leave the egos, leave the, you know, any, you know, bad mouthing, animosity, whatever, you know, stirring be at the door. We all have a common goal, and that's to have a successful tank business shop, you know, brand, or, you know, whatever. So let's use the platform as a collective platform where everybody can have their voice and have their say and share their opinion and their experience. And as a result of that, everybody at any level will benefit. Simple as that.
Surely, right?
And it
No
is the happiest
agendas, no
positive escape.
egos.
It's a positive escape from life, man. Life can be tough.
Exactly.
You know, this hobby is at its weakest state, probably. You know, ever. You know, we've got people who can't even access an LFS, right? And it's all about growing and strengthening this community and saying, yeah, we're all in this together. Retailers, professionals, hobbyists. We want it to grow, and let's help everybody succeed and make some really interesting content.
Definitely.
And you know what? Aqua was great, right? But you ain't got to have a lorry load of money to put on a reefing event. You can just make a couple of phone calls, put a few things out on Instagram. We're thinking of being here on this day as a little, you know, hopefully there'll be tea and coffee somewhere, whatever. And for a couple of hours, you meet up and you go back to normal life afterwards. Do you know what I mean? You ain't got to have a lorry load of money to create these little meetups.
Yeah.
No.
So created the Instagram page the other day. It's live now. It is the _Reefers_network, and we just appreciate anybody to like, share, follow, and tag in the page with anything reefing related, just to get it to grow, to get it off the floor, should I say?
Off the chip was
off the chip, yeah. It's been a great last 24 hours. We've had a lot of support, a lot of people. Thanks to everybody who's already started sharing and liking and following, etc. But yeah, if everybody could get behind it, it will help us get off the ground a lot quicker. So yeah, we appreciate everybody's support.
Also build
build that roster. We are going to be publicising, or should I say publishing, who's going to be on the roster. Got a little bit more behind the scenes to do first.
You won't see me again, everyone. Thanks, it's been great. It's been great. Thank you. See you soon.
Well, you've got to have a bit of comedy on it, and that's the thing. We've got to keep the comedy. We've got to keep the fun. Drippy will be coming on again sometime soon. Hopefully, we'll have changed the shower curtain and sorted some light diffuser out. But in the meantime,
the good vibes works. I like that.
Good vibes works. Yes.
Thank you for your help.
Sunday. Happy Sunday, everybody. But no, thanks Drippy, thanks Josh, thanks Christian, and thanks most importantly you, the viewers, for tuning in this Sunday morning. Really appreciate it, and thanks again for your support. Pond, or Christian, as you used to be known, thanks ever so much for coming on and chatting this morning, mate. And yeah, as you know, we will be on whether it's next Sunday, next Friday, we will let you know, but we're not going to interfere with the farewell stream that Jay and the guys are putting together. Looking forward to that. But no, that leaves us on to say, have a cracking weekend. What's left? Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we'll speak to you all soon. Take care.
Take care, guys.